सच भरी हुई बस में अपने आप को लोगों से बचाना बहुत मुश्किल हो जाता है.
Frantically walking.
There are enough seats and more here. You don't need to stand. Okay. So the next speaker that we have with us is Sofia Salek de Braun. Sofia is a traffic ambassador with the PTV group. And part of the reason why she's a traffic ambassador, traffic safety ambassador, is also a very personal story. And we'd like to hear from you, Sofia. And I hope your story will touch a chord and will change how we deal with traffic safety. Please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sofia, and I am Traffic Safety Ambassador by PTV Group. And I am very glad to meet you here today and to share with you my story and the work that I've been doing for road safety. And I would like to begin with a quote from Harry Potter, from the wise Dumbledore. He said, "While we may come from different places and speak in different tongues, our hearts beat as one." I think this is a very true and powerful quote. We may be different in many ways, but there is something that we humans have in common: our emotions and our feelings. We all have someone to love and to care about, which give us the need to protect them. And there is where my story begins, and many others. When we talk about road safety, we can approach it from different perspectives. And today I'm going to talk to you about road safety from an emotional point of view, from a woman's, and most of all, from a mother's perspective. Sharing with you the experience that changed my life, the life of my loved ones, and many other lives surrounding us. Originally, I come from Bolivia, South America, but have been living in Germany for 17 years. So almost all our vacations are dedicated to visit the family in Bolivia during Christmas, so that the kids and grandparents can have some quality time together. In 2015, we planned our vacation quite early to have more of this joyful anticipation. Coming closer to the travel date, exactly on the 22nd of September, my 5-year-old son, Luca, began to count down how many days he still have to sleep before seeing his grandparents in Bolivia. On the 11th of December, the awaited journey started, and on December 12th, we arrived in Santa Cruz, Bolivia. At the airport, the whole family was waiting for us. The picture behind me was taken at the moment of our arrival, a moment of complete happiness, full of kisses and hugs, and all these smiley faces, rejoicing from the happy moments that we had ahead of us. We walked to the car park, and the first question came, who is going with whom and in which car? So I went with my daughter, my 15-year-old daughter, Catalina, with my parents, and my husband went with his parents and my son, Luca. When we arrived at my parents' house, I looked back, expecting to see them behind us, but I couldn't see them. We went into the house, and a few minutes later, I asked if Gregor already arrived. And my brother answered, not yet, but maybe they have been stopped in the condo entrance control. So I walked to the entrance to see if they were there, but they weren't. And I walked back into my parents' house. Before I get in, I saw my brother coming out, agitated, talking on his phone. At that moment, I felt a prick on my heart, and I asked what was going on. He tried to evade my question, and I asked louder. Then he said there was a car crash and jumped into his car and drove off. Then I started running behind his car, not even knowing where he was going. When he drove out from the condo and turned left into the avenue, and I was still running behind his car, I realized the sound of the sirens on the other side of the street. And then I knew that something bad really happened. He stopped 200 meters ahead, and I could see the car crash of my parents-in-law. He tried to hold me so that I cannot see the scene, but I broke through and began to screen all the faces looking for my family. Then I saw a group of people that were surrounding someone, and this someone was my husband. I could barely recognize him because he was covered with blood and he had a huge hematoma on his head, so that I thought he lost his eye. And the first thing that I asked was, "Where is my son?" He tried to hold and cover me, and then I asked louder, "Where is my son?" I turned around and I saw Luca lying on the ground. I fell onto my knees, thinking, this is not happening, not to us. Then I tried to hold my child into my arms, and the emergency people didn't allow it until the homicide division arrived. So I decided to lie beside Luca on the floor. The rest of my family arrived into the scene, and my older brother asked who was driving the car that caused the accident, which actually was a 17-year-old boy driving at a very high speed without driving license. He was driving at 170 kilometers per hour in a 50 kilometer per hour zone. But then I stood up and said to him, I don't want to know it. Nothing can change this situation. And I think that having killed 3 people and having to live with this in your conscience must be punishment enough. Then I lied again next to Luca. And I could see how the lifeless bodies of my parents-in-law were taken out of the car. It took more than an hour for the homicide commission to arrive and to do nothing besides saying that they have to take the body to the morgue. They wanted to put my child into the truck bed of a pickup truck. I didn't accept that, and the people around neither. So I took my child and I went into their car. When we arrived at the morgue, a place far outside the city, I was sitting on the floor of a terrace for 5 hours, holding my child into my arms and waiting for the autopsy to begin. I was trying to understand what just happened and how our lives had changed completely in only a few seconds. I thought on my daughter and how I am going to tell her what happened so that she doesn't fall apart and she can continue to live her life. And then what can I do to help her to be happy again one day? Catalina was the second mother of Luca. She loves him more than anything. At that moment, I realized that the grief of my daughter was more important to me than my own. Then I thought about my husband, not even knowing if he was going to survive. And I said to me, I have lost my child, but he has lost his child and his parents. So I knew I cannot break down. I have to be there for them because I love them, and we need each other more than ever. During the wake, I had to make one of the most difficult decisions in my life. Can you imagine what it's like to leave home with all the illusion to spend the Christmas holidays with the whole family, and almost on the same day, far away from home, having to decide how and where to bury your 5-year-old child? Dealing with questions like, is this right to cremate his body or not? No one can imagine that, because it is against nature, because no parents should bury their child. When my husband left the hospital, he didn't talk much. One day I saw that he took a blank sheet of paper and began writing down everything that needed to be improved and changed in this country so that something like this doesn't happen to another family. This was his way of helping us move forward. That is how the initiative to foster a culture of road safety in Bolivia was born, from the bottom of our hearts on behalf of our loved ones. Back in Germany, one thing led to another. Step by step and from conversation to conversation, we had some great encounters with very special people, colleagues from PTV Group, who gave us strength and unconditional love, and always following the vision to foster a culture of road safety in Bolivia. Together with academia and other organizations, we developed a concrete plan and conducted the first road safety workshop in Bolivia in December 2016, with the aim to start a rethinking process in the mind of Bolivian people and to raise the awareness of the importance of road safety. It was the first time that all levels involved in road safety have met in a cooperative manner: the national, the regional, and the local government, the police, the universities, the civil society organizations, and the media. The challenge was to make them understand that road safety doesn't understand ideologies. That is one of the most serious problems of public health. And the aftermath that left traffic accidents poses a series of social, economical, and emotional consequences. The main message was, we must not wait for tragedies to happen in order to act. We must act before they happen. Road safety is a collective commitment and can only be improved if we work all together. As a very important result, a commitment covering the frame of required actions was signed by all the participants, and on that basis, we continue working with the Global Road Safety Facility, funds, and CAF to further improve road safety in Bolivia. Along this journey, I fell and stood up several times. I shed a lot of tears, and I had many sleepless nights. But I also had happy moments. Each time we reached a further goal within our impulse to move road safety forward in Bolivia. It requires a lot of energy to keep the ball rolling, but the motivation to save lives is bigger than the obstacles in my path. Life taught me a lot. I learned that the most important thing is to take action. It is not easy, particularly when you are connected emotionally, because when something fails, It affects you deeply. But one very wise person said to me, Sofia, by taking action, you are planting a seed. We don't know how long it will take for the plant to grow or flower. It may be a short or a long period, but the only thing that we know is that without a seed, a plant cannot exist. So every day, at every moment, we are in the position of being able to do the right things, and each of us can make a difference, no matter what the efforts are. If they go towards saving lives, each effort counts. What happened to my family can happen to anybody at any time. We all know that every day people die or are seriously injured in road traffic collisions. But we always seem to think that this only happens to others, far away, people we don't know. But it happened to us, and within seconds, our life changed completely. Road safety is a shared responsibility. It is mine, and it is yours. We all have a role to play, and we should take action for the fact that everyone who dies in a road crash is someone's relative, and there is no person who will not be missed. Thank you.
It's hard to say anything after something like that, and I can only say that I can barely imagine the pain that you've gone through, Sofia, but thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you for making it real for us. Road safety is just an unbelievable thing because it's entirely man-made. As in, we've made our worlds unsafe because somehow speed has become more important than life. In India as well as in Bolivia, road safety is a big disaster. We have 150,000 Lucas dying every year. In large cities like Chennai or Delhi, we have 4 to 5 people every day who leave home never to come back. And all because somehow we've said the speed of a car is more important than those lives. So we need to make that change. We at ITDP, along with partners, have made this our priority. We've been working with cities. Chennai has now become a city which has adopted Vision Zero as its official policy, that streets and people come first before cars and speed. Other cities are joining that, and I invite all of you to make this your priority. Thank you. With this, we'll move to the last session of the day. We have some very interesting speakers who would reflect on what we've learned through the day and also give us some thoughts on what could we do immediately in the near term, but also what's the longer term agenda for us. So I'd like to invite Paula Tapia, the former Minister of Transport and Telecommunications at Chile. Please, onto the stage. Christine Lintz from the Global Women's Network for Energy Transition. Thank you. May Ali Babika, she is from the Women and Youth Empowerment Division of the Islamic Development Bank.
You can follow Claudia's not coming. She had a flight problem still at home.
Okay. We also have Christina Quebec from GIZ. She is an advisor on Sustainable Mobility Project. Christina. Sheila Watson, she's the Deputy Director at the FIA Foundation. And she's also the representative of the Sum for All Gender Working Group. We also had Claudia Adrizola Stale from the Urban Mobility, from the World Resources Center. However, she could not make it because of flight issues. So we have 5 very interesting speakers who've been doing great work in their own right. And so I'll start with, actually, Paula. Paula, can you please share, this has been one of the most interesting conferences I've ever been, not just a gender conference I've ever been at. And so it's been a privilege for me to be moderating this session. Could you please tell us what you saw or what you learned from the proceedings during the day-to-day?
Okay, thanks. Hi, I hope you are very well. The first is, I have 2 children, and Sofia, thanks for sharing your history for us. It's very important for the present, for the future, very emotions. Today is an important day for us because we are women, because we work hard to incorporate women into transport. Thanks to GIZ and to me for the organization, this conference, excellent organizations. Thanks Verena and all group. Is a beautiful, beautiful group, and thanks a lot for all. I am Paola Tapia. I am lawyer. I am working for 15 years in the Minister of Transport in my country, in different roles, in aviation transport, in public transport, and rail transport, and administration of a state company. One day, the president of Chile, my president, asked me to be a minister. Surprise for me, a surprise for family. And I was the first woman minister in my country, and in Chile, in South America. I think it's interesting to share to experience and ideas that we implement without forgetting relevant aspects, like, for example, that we did not have a nursing room. Do you know, for the woman, a special room in the minister? Today, there is room. The woman there is room. During my time as ministers, we had 2 main goals relating to women and transport. We want to improve public transport to make it safer, more accessible, and more relevant for women. And second, to promote the role of women in the business of transport. We create the first roundtable conversation and actions between a transport company and government, help create more opportunities for women in transport. For example, the president established the obligation that 40% of the top positions of public companies were occupied by women. We take actions to increase the number of women in the drivers in the public transport, and very important, we wrote and approved the first public policy of gender and transport equality, because must continue the work day by day, and together we can. And the chain is now with short and long-term projects. For example, the group of women for Iberoamerica, that we will start now, and to which we hope to add other other women. Yes, we women can. Together, we can. Similar Obama.
Christine, may I ask you to have your reflections from the conference first, and then we have a second round, actually, where I'd like to ask you also about what you think are the short-term and the long-term wins that we can have, looking at it from your own organization and your professional perspective.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's absolutely great to have a mixed audience here. Despite the fact that there are lots of women, which is great. Normally, at least in energy conferences, it's always the other way around. I have been working in the field of energy for my entire career, for the last 25 years, on sustainable energy, meaning renewable energy and energy efficiency. And what we clearly see, at least in the energy world, we talk more and more about sector coupling, about coupling of electricity, transport and heating sector. And I think this is definitely something that we need to focus more in the future. And I think it's great to bring these communities somehow together. Of course, when you look at energy, the situation is very much so that it is a male-dominated sector. We have a situation that in the energy sector, roughly 29% of the workforce are women. In sustainable energy, it's about, according to IRENA, the International Renewable Energy Agency, 35%. But there is still a long, long way to go to really harvest the potential of women in this space, which I think, and you see that really in this room, which is abundant and which is really contagious, I would say. When I hear facts that the Indian Railways transporting the entire world population in 1 year, 8 billion people, and when I hear that there are only 7.6% of women in the workforce, I can see that the situation of women in transport is a very similar, if not worse one, than in the energy sector. And I think this is something, especially the many of us here in this room are convinced that needs to be changed. So with this, and with this experience, a year ago, I have co-founded the Global Women's Network for the Energy Transition. It's an international NGO focusing on empowering women in this as actors of change, as agents of change in the energy transition. And I think this is something, and maybe this conference could be a starting point for something similar in the transport sector, because I think what we need to do is to bring people together. I think we need to work on data. It was mentioned several times that very often the data on women in different sectors is missing. We need to work on policy. Paula has presented the first public policy on gender and transport in Chile. A very good example, I think, with the Sustainable Development Goals, SDG 5, governments are more and more obliged to focus on mainstreaming gender aspects in different areas. And we are working definitely on the energy side of linking SDG 5 and SDG 7. We are also working on empowering women in that space. We have just launched a couple of months ago the first global mentoring program in the energy field for mid-career women to really help them advance in their career. And I think that could also be something which could be an interesting possibility for the transport sector. We are also, and I think this is very important, that we have gatherings like today where women can establish networks among their peers. But I think it's also very important that we have men in the room, like we have here today. Those are the real champions, because I think it needs both men and women to empower gender balance in the different sectors. And last but not least, we are also working on a database of women experts in the energy sector, because I've been going to conferences all around the place, and very often I was the only woman on the panel, and I've always been told there are no other women, and this is not true. You might have to look a bit closer to find them, but they are absolutely out there. Just look around you and you see the fabulous talent that is out there in this space. So I think there is room for collaboration between energy and gender, and there are lots of, between energy and transport on gender aspects, as there are lots of synergies, and I'm absolutely convinced that more women in this space will make both the energy and the transport sector more sustainable.
Thank you, thank you. May I call on May Ali Babikar to speak about how you're bringing about change, first your reflections on the day, but also how you're bringing about change through the Islamic Development Bank, and what you see as short-term wins, but also longer-term horizon.
Okay, so 2 in 1.
It looks like everybody's speaking in one go, so you might as well just go at it, and we'll see if we have some time at the end, but...
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, thank you. First of all, I'm really happy to be part of this conference, the first of its kind, and we look forward for more to come. Maybe I just introduced a bit the Islamic Development Bank for many people that might not know. So it's a South-South multilateral development bank covering 57 member countries in 4 continents. And also it covers also Muslim communities in non-member countries, so almost the whole world. So this is who we are. We work with a mission on human dignity and prosperity. And the vehicles for that are human development, so education, health, and we also invest in transport, a lot of transport projects, energy projects, and so on and so forth. So for the transport sector, which is one of the major sectors that the bank invests in, we do rural roads and feeder roads. We do also urban. So the discussion today was mainly about urban roads, but we also do the rural part of it, which comes with economic opportunities, access to markets for women and also for rural people, rural communities. We also do road corridors, so cross-border trade, which brings the whole element of violence against women at a different level, where we talk about cross-border traders. From my previous life, working for the African Development Bank, I have also been involved in this part of engendering transport, working with countries in engendering transport policies, and also working in engendering the project of transport sector. So with that in mind, the discussion and the role of the multilateral development banks in this is very important. Through at least our role when it comes to projects that we engender the projects, we make sure that it addresses the needs of men and women. So when we are building a road, we need to make sure that the road safety and the issues of integration of women in terms of economic opportunities, that they are going to benefit from it. So the discussion we had today fall within what we were talking about as our role as MDBs, but the main thing I would say, it comes with partnership, that nobody can do it alone. It's all of us. It's civil society, it's the governments, it's the private sector, it's multilateral development banks. And I think each one of us spoke from our own perspective, but we're all talking about the same, and we cannot do it alone. And we have to partner also with men. So partnership at levels of institutions, but also partnership at level of individuals. So men and women are partners on this. And mainly we need to have something like a role model when it comes to women and when it comes to men champions. So that would be one of my takeaways of this conference. The other thing is the importance of women being part of planning our transport. As everybody was talking about, that when you have men planning the transport, then it is transport for men. So I like one of the colleagues said about transport for society. So when you involve women, then you have the transport that is planned for everybody. One last thing would be about the women who are the embracers of change. One of the ex-minister talked about it, and I think that was one of my also takeaways, that women are agents of change, and it starts with us. It starts with us even for the long term, and that brings me to the next point. In the long term, we are the ones who are socializing men, whether we like it or not, despite of the different roles that we are playing. We are the ones who are bringing up those men who are doing this discrimination against us. So it starts with us, that we should do justice to us by, if we are still socializing our kids, then we have to socialize them differently, and we have to use the different means of socialization, so be it the education institutions, media, everybody, that is the starting point for the long term. The other one that comes to my mind with the long term is having a tailored approach. So each of the countries has completely different needs, completely different cultures. When it comes to using bikes, in some communities, is completely forbidden. In the countries I'm covering, I have countries that women are going to start to drive. So we are at completely different spectrums when it comes to the countries we are covering. When we talk about a fragile state or a country that is rising from conflict like Liberia, like my country, Sudan. So it is a tailored approach that has to be accustomed to the different contexts. I think the quick win we have, and I will finish with that, is the Me Too. That we have this momentum now. Everybody is talking about the importance of safety and security of women, the importance of ending sexual harassment. So this is one of the quick wins that we should really capitalize on, the work on road safety, security, and ending sexual harassment. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next is Christina from GIZ. And even though I've been the face of this event, in reality, it's Christina and Verena and Amin, the whole team at GIZ, which has been behind creating such a wonderful conference. So first of all, I'd like all of you to congratulate GIZ on that.
Thank you.
And Christina, your thoughts? Like, what did you expect when this whole thing started? And
Well,
what has your learning been?
What did we expect? Well, we hoped to reach something half as big as it turned out, I think. So we had something in our mind when we started planning this conference, but it all turned out to be much better than we ever thought. And we tried to make it in a way that it's different to all other conferences. We didn't want to have PowerPoint presentations the entire day. And this really, I think, is also my main takeaway of today, that there is a kind of spirit in this room with all these personal stories, and it was always the person here with his personal experiences letting us participate and telling their personal view of how a women's world looks like, especially regarding to transport and mobility. So really, I'm glad that it all turned out the way it did, and I thank you so much that you all came here and participated and showed interest. And yes, so that's the quick win, I'd say. It's this spirit. And if we would have another kind of conference or whatsoever, I would take away the versus, I think. It doesn't have to be quick wins versus structural change. I think that we need to have some quick wins in order to reach a structural change in the long term. And I think that this is also something that GIZ is working for. We are active in many different countries, as you've heard, and also in many different sectors like energy or agriculture or water and sanitation, and of course also in transport. And we do information campaigns, we raise awareness, we build capacity in administration and governance, and we conduct webinars, we have information material. We freshly released and published our newest publication, thanks to Heather over there too, which is a new gender source book, Sustainable Transport, a source book for policymakers in developing cities with the title of Approaches for Gender Responsive Urban Mobility. You all got a copy of it already in your bags of today, and all this and much more material can be found at our SUTP homepage, which is like a rich library of source books for sustainable mobility, many different aspects of it. So this is something which GIZ will also do in future time, go on with conferences like this and try and help produce more material, information material, and so on. Of course, as GIZ, we are a proud partner of TUMI, can you see here? And we are proud to take part with transforming urban mobility by this initiative. And yes, I think that we will take the spirit of today as our quick win, and of course make sure that we take it over into our future activities and hopefully lead to a structural change.
Thank you. Thank you. And finally, Sheila, you've been doing some great work, the foundation, VIA Foundation. So please share your thoughts on the day and the future.
Thank you very much. So I should say, FIA Foundation, super quickly, UK-based charity, completely independent charity. We focus on safe and sustainable mobility. We do a great deal of work on road safety, and I'd very much like to make contact with you later, Sofia, to see whether there's anything that we can do to support your work. And in the role of Deputy Director of FIA Foundation, I am also part of the Sustainable Mobility for All initiative, which I think I'm representing on the stage here today. They've just had a big meeting next door. They're an initiative of the World Bank. We're an initiative of the World Bank, I should say. A really good initiative which is trying to draw together the transport community around some core themes. They're very familiar themes: efficiency, safety, access, and green. And after a little bit of wrangling and pushing and shoving and arguing our corner, we have a rural theme coming out of those four, and also a gender theme. So we've been pushing hard on these issues in that setting. And my first takeaway, therefore, because I chair that, or co-chair that gender group, is a big thank you to you all, because if we had tried as a group to set up a workshop for gathering amazing practice, making wonderful contacts, and enough evidence to write our chapter and make our contribution to the report that will come from this Sustainable Mobility for All initiative, then we'd have got all of you together in a room. And today has been absolutely invaluable, totally inspirational, and I think many of you can expect to follow up from the team at Some for All just to hear more about the incredible work that you're all doing and the way that it substantiates the clear necessity for issues around gender to be taken very seriously as we look forward on the issue of sustainable mobility. And that's sort of my second takeaway, because I think repeatedly today people have talked about things, be they incredibly local or obviously very global, which are really ways of saying, I think, that we will never have the sustainable mobility we all know we need to save our planet, to give us all, in equal measure, not just the rich north, but everybody else, the prosperity that we all want to have, unless we address the issues that we're raising around gender in transport. If we don't sort that out, we won't get sustainable mobility. If we don't get sustainable mobility, given its connection to energy and the issues around climate, then we're in serious trouble. So we're a really important part of this big mission, and that's my second takeaway. And then thirdly, however, I think our prospects are great. I think there's a wonderful network. Someone earlier said that you all look great. Well, after listening to you for a day, you will sound great too. And that network is something that we should build on. We mustn't let this moment go. We mustn't let this energy go that GIZ has sort of created and brought together here, and which was evident at Transforming Transportation. And I think that must power us onwards as we support each other in the work that we're doing.
Excellent. Thank you. Any closing thoughts that any one of you would like on the day? Or is there anyone from the audience who would like any closing thoughts? Anyone? Please.
Hi, Bronwyn Thornton, Walk 21. As one of those people who's sat on more panels than she can count as the token woman, and even to the extent where a colleague rang up and said, you're meant to be on stage now. I said, you do it, you can say the same things I can say. They said, no, they need you, because you're the woman and the gender balance is out. I want to thank Tumi, and I want to thank this group, because I think the feeling that actually, you know what, you can run an entire day talking transport and have only women speakers. And I reckon we could run 3 days talking about transport with only women speakers. And
Absolutely.
It's been absolutely inspirational. No more tokens. Thank you, Tumi.
So, yep, please.
Yeah, there was a question there before about feminism, and I was at that moment I wanted to reply, and just because we were talking about this already the whole day, I guess, just wanted to make a comment that I guess feminism is also very diverse, and this is what we are representing here at this conference, because when somebody is asked, like, if you are feminist, it's kind of... some of people even, like, you know, feel offended when you're saying you are a feminist, because at the end, the understandings of feminism are very different. There are different theories of that. And one of these, I guess, what I've heard sometimes, there are people, or like women, they have very different perspectives of life, and we should accept that. And some of the feminism theories, they are very maybe exaggerating or something, and some of them less exaggerating, and that's what I think we are all these women here from very different countries, from very different backgrounds, cultures, and accepting us and inspiring us, each other. This is what we are, and that's why maybe again this phrase was coming up again, that women planning transport are planning transport for all, for the society. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Gotelind Alba. I work with Gender CC Women for Climate Justice. And I have been thinking about starting a global network on gender and transport, on gender and mobility for quite a while. And now, being here today, I think the time is right. So whoever is interested in this initiative, please contact me. So I don't think I think there is a lot of initiatives around, but I don't have the feeling it would duplicate anything that is already going on, since what the focus would be to make all the knowledge and the contacts and the findings and the approaches available to women on the ground. And so we work already with women's organizations around the world, and would provide some kind of a platform to link them up with the experts, with the various initiatives that support whatever, cycling, walking, that support urban, sustainable urban transport policy, gender responsive transport policy, and so forth. So please contact me if you're interested. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gladys. I'm from Green Africa Foundation in Kenya. And one of the things I really appreciate being in this conference is all the different, we are told women are very emotional, but all the different emotions, from feeling, yes, we can do this, from the tears, from the happiness of seeing what other women are doing with the Miss Taxi. And I feel that this is the reason why women are driving change, because we are sensitive, but we are also strong and very resilient and aggressive towards seeing this is a gap and we can make a change. So this conference has served to give me that fire to go back home and do what it is I've been doing. Thank you.
Thank you for this wonderful panel. I'm going to go back to the title of this panel in saying that, what do you think are the barriers that actually not prohibit, but impede quick wins from becoming structural changes? I think for many of us who are working, either with government or etc., we think that there is a challenge, that a pilot or a quick win may not always translate into something that is embedded within institutions. And so what do you think are those barriers, and how can we address these then?
anyone who from the panel would like to do that? I had the question anyway listed, but thanks, Sonal, for asking.
So I suppose I think I'm quite old now, and I've been around. I am genuinely really very old. I'll feel older at the end of ITF at Leipzig, that's for sure. And I kind of feel like sometimes we're our own barrier. I mean, there's something entirely liberating about that whole Me Too thing. And it was a moment that we just can't let go of. And already I was reading stuff about, the Cannes Film Festival, and they were saying, it's all getting a little old hat now, and nobody was really wearing the badge anymore. So it's kind of gone. And I think that's the real challenge for us. We just get hold and we don't let go. And that is our challenge. We have to step up to it. And we have to support each other doing it. Us oldies, and women who are joining the sector and across as many places as we can, is my thought.
Well, I totally agree to what you said, and I think that we can only overcome the barriers if we exchange our knowledge and if we just make it open, publish it, let others learn from our experiences, what went well and also what didn't work well. And I think this conference format is one way of doing this, but of course also publications and going public, having some, digital tools helping or whatsoever. So there are many ways, and I just think we need to come to implementation, and that's something that we should focus on. So let this just be the starting point for some kind of, a second edition of conference or for a network of like-minded, but make sure that we will come to implementation and help to address gender-responsive transport all over the world.
Maybe it's very important we don't not forget this meeting. For return with as country, it's very important continue communication about the good practice and other public policies, and it's very important work not only urban mobilize, it's the rural mobilize. It's good important because the difference is different, the country is different, and maybe when we work together, it's more easy. The change, in the future, is now. It's very important. The change is now. For example, in my country, the student is reclaiming for rights. It's very important. Speak very, very high and listen with us.
Well, I think in addition to all what they have said, I agree with it. I think we should not give up. I think that was the message that was repeated in all of the presentation, that you face barriers, but you should not give up. You should always be persistent about what you want to do and try new ways, try innovative ways. Think out of the box, but don't give up.
Yeah, and I would just add, I think it's important to share stories and to share best practices, because many of you have said that the energy in this room inspires you to continue your work at home, and I think that's something, it's like a motivational boost, and now we go all back and change things in our sphere of activity and really try to bring this change.
Thank you. So maybe I think it's time for us to wrap up. Okay, last. Sorry. Yes.
I can't thank you enough, so I'm not going to repeat that. Honestly, from the bottom of our hearts, we appreciate this. And I've been to a lot of conferences. I've never seen such global representativity in my entire life. Thank you for that. But I just want to give all of us some takeaways or homework, rather. Please go and look at the Sustainable Development Goals. Eradication of poverty, eradication of inequality, and then try and find a goal on public transport, which is an enabler. If you do find it, let me know, because I've been searching and I have not been successful. The second thing is, Sofia, from the bottom of my heart, honestly, but you got me thinking about the UN Decade of Action on Safety. It's less than 2 years to go. It's got 2020 targets. And I really cannot tell you whether we're making strides, or I can't tell you what has been achieved between 2010 and 2020. That's something we need to go back and think about. It's really nice to have these conversations, but we need to move the needle.
So with that, I think I should start wrapping up the session. We have another very important program right after this. So here are some of my takeaways. No surprises, but I think these are important. So the first is, I think, we often think that there are lots of differences between, what applies in Latin America or Africa or Asia, but I think there's more in common between us than there's different. And so let's not forget that. So let's learn from each other and let's apply it, because the world truly is a single place in many senses. And a woman in Bolivia or Chile or a woman in India is facing very similar issues when it comes to mobility or just life. So let's make sure that we do that. I think also, while I wouldn't say definitively, but I think most of who we are in this room are from relatively privileged backgrounds. And so let's not forget and not make this only about privilege, but also make sure that we are making life better for women who are not so privileged out there. It's on us to make sure that that happens. Also, share your story. Share your story and be an inspiration. I loved what Ms. Taxigana said. Be a virus, be a good one, but inspire other women to make that change. Also, oftentimes we wait for opportunities, but let's not wait for opportunities. Let's jump at opportunities. Let's create opportunities. We really need to do that. And also not just create opportunities for you to do something, create opportunities for other women to do something. I think that's on us to make sure that that happens and inspire other women. I do have some thoughts on the whole issue of, quick wins versus structural, because I think somewhere we get lost with quick wins. It's nice, the pilots are nice, but at the end of the day, we are, pilots have almost become, not just in this sector, I think pilots have become somewhat of a tokenism, where you show something, a small little change happens. I know, not specifically with this, but let's also talk about, gender. I know of examples where safety alarms put up in a bus have not been used at all, or have been, and yet they're being promoted as best practices in some senses. I don't know, how exactly you use that information, or in a completely different side, for example, on cycle sharing, and that's something that we actively work on ITTP. We work on cycle sharing, and there are cities which have put up 10 cycles at a single station and calling it a cycle sharing system, and that's not quite cycle sharing, and that's not what pilots are meant to be. You really need to show change happen and make that structural. So we also need to make sure that these get embedded into our policies, into our finance schemes, but also in the way we start hiring in our organizations, within our organizations to start with, and then externally as we'll push for there being more women in public agencies and there being more women in politics. So that's how we can bring about that change to happen. So at the end of the day, I would just like to say, a city that's of the women, for the women, by the women is a great city for all. So let's make that happen. Thank you. Thanks a lot. So closing notes. Right after this, we are going to have an award ceremony of the TUMI Global Urban Mobility Challenge. Cities across the world had applied for this challenge, and I believe there are 10 cities which have won the award, and so we would have that award-giving ceremony. And I'd like Danielle to be on the stage to take over. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm so happy to see all of you today here, and you can't believe how I'm feeling because we've been working so long to make this conference happen, and we've also been working a lot of last year on the TUMI Global Mobility Challenge, and among you are now the 10 winners that actually won the TUMI Global Urban Mobility Challenge, a global challenge to find the most innovative and replicable solutions towards transforming urban mobility. And I would like to invite Ms. Tanja Rödiger-Vorwerk, the Deputy General for Environment and Infrastructure of our ministry, on stage to give a couple of introductory words about the challenge, where it comes from, and what we aim to do with it. Please welcome her.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's me again, and I'm very happy about it. So allow me to give you some background, what we are doing here today for the very first time, another thing for the very first time. So we all know that cities have become the place where we decide our future, and mobility is really key to realize the potential of cities. The free flow of people and goods enables access to business, education, health, and much more. At the same time, the way our transport is designed today, it is really threatening our future. And we know that already 27% are responsible of energy-related GHG emissions. So to protect our climate, there's no way around than to decarbonize transport sector, to decarbonize the energy sector and at the same time the transport sector. That without this sustainable mobility, we will not reach our SDGs, the development goals, and we will not reach our climate goals. That's very easy. And this is why we are here today, bringing together these inspiring women and to take ambition into action. And ladies and gentlemen, at the same time of the rapid global change and that fast innovation cycles, societies worldwide must work harder, and business as usual will not lead us to any result. That is why we have to make better use of our potential of bringing disruptive solutions to the global development. And local action is key to tackle local challenges, and cities worldwide can learn from each other, as we know. But without you, this will not be possible. And because together we can create better transport and ultimately more sustainable societies for all. Only together we can have taken our ambitions into actions. So what about this TUMI, Transformative Urban Mobility Initiative? Is since its beginning 2 years ago, always be an initiative focused on action. And the presence of so many of you here shows me that our journey, which began 2 years ago, our journey towards sustainable mobility, urban transport, is on track. The goal of TUMI is to support the cities in designing sustainable transport system. This leads to safer, healthier, low-carbon, and economically powerful cities, combined with skilled people, with knowledge, and the tools to actually enable change lies at the heart of our success story. The TUMI initiative, the Transformative Urban Mobility Initiative, is based on 3 pillars. It's very easy. The first pillar is about capacity development. The second pillar is about facilitating access to the finance, which is there, but which is difficult to get. And the third pillar is about innovation. And that's why we are here now today, this evening. Innovation in fields such as technology, bold street design, e-mobility, or safety and security measures are main drivers of change towards new mobility behavior. Innovation helps renewing existing mobility services and enables the development of complementary new solutions. And you, as entrepreneurs, city leaders, designers, transport experts and programmers have the chance and power to actively design the future of this urban mobility. And this is why we are keen working with you. At the COP23 in Bonn, we stepped up our efforts with the launch of the TUMI Global Urban Mobility Challenge. Out of more than 100 applications, we selected the best with the help of some experts, and the most innovative ideas for sustainable transport in emerging economies and developing countries. And I'm very happy to be here today and to say that we have representatives from almost all winning entities and entries with us here today, and you will see them now. And as I'm from the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, we are, and I am, very impressed by the spirit and vision, and especially by the action we have seen over the past year. You, as the winners of the first TUMI Global Urban Mobility Challenge, show how fast and innovative action for transport looks like. Thank you for that, and we want to support you to put it into practice, your ideas of sustainable urban mobility, with our partner cities around the world. And I invite all of you to go ahead and work towards putting your innovative, replicable, and scalable ideas to reality in your city. We will do everything to support you in this endeavor. And that is why I'm proud and honored to see you and to have you here today as the winners of the TUMI Challenge.
Thank you very much. So we'll now have to ask all the winners on stage one by one. So I'll be here together with Ms. Rödiger Forward, and we'll ask the winners on stage. And first of all, I'd like to ask Ms. Anzola del Toro and Ms. Palacio of the Secretaría de la Mujer de Bogotá, Colombia, and CAF on stage for the rollout of the safety pin app and collecting data in order to ensure safety of women and girls in Bogotá, Colombia. Please come on stage. I would like to ask Ms. Campbell and Ms. Casas Guerrero on stage from Open Streets Cape Town for implementing and planning a network of car-free streets to promote non-motorized transport in Cape Town, South Africa. I would like to ask Ms. Sheng of Ikle on behalf of Singra Municipality, Bangladesh on stage for the planning and implementation of an e-rickshaw project in Singra, Bangladesh. I would like to ask Mr. Shita Bey and Ms. Son Oiki on stage from the Lagos Metropolitan Area Transport Authority, LAMATA,
for a project to improve sidewalks and to promote walkability in Lagos, Nigeria. I would like to ask Mr. Tong and Ms. Tran on stage from Hoi An City and Hell's Bridge, Vietnam, for the implementation of a bicycle sharing program in Hoi An City, Vietnam. I would like to ask Ms. Ben Abdel Aziz and Mr. Bulgu from Irizen and the Foundation for Sustainable Development for El Kala del Sakna, Morocco on stage for the implementation of the e-tricycle program for transport of goods in El Kala del Sakna province, Morocco. I would like to ask Mr. Seyum and Mrs. Birane on stage from Addis Ababa city government for the implementation of a bicycle sharing system in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. I would like to ask Ms. Atambo and Mr. Onvanse from the Computing Lab for Development of the University of Nairobi on stage for the implementation of a mobility accelerator to support sustainable urban mobility startups in Nairobi, Kenya. I would like to ask Mr. Gagaga and Mr. Luemea from Dar Rapid Transit Agency, Dar es Salaam, Tanzania on stage for the creation of an open data portal for multimodal transport in Dar es Salaam. And last but not least, I would like to ask Ms. Divjat Hashini and Ms. Rashevari on stage for the creation of an integrated walkway network in Chennai, India. Thank you all very much. I would like to advise the winners of the TUMI Global Urban Mobility Challenge to come to this room at 6:30 for a group picture together with all TUMI partners. I would also like to ask you to go over to the reception room, the Telemans room, in a couple of minutes. And Tanja Rödiger-Vorwerk will have a couple of words for you together also with Some for All and the FIA Foundation. Thank you very much.